Thank you very much. So I feel a little bit embarrassed when I see what Flavio has. It's huge. I mean, it's very important. What I'm going to talk about is going to be pretty much related to that. Of course, we're going to come from a little bit different angle. So we didn't work much with the parent yet, but we worked from schools. So, well, before I go to the detail of this, let me take this stage as part of a celebration of the Townsend Thai data and also for Rob Townsend, for Professor Townsend, as I'm one of his students. So at least this work is, if you look at it, it's pretty different from what Professor Townsend has done for many, many years. He would be talking a lot about financial access, family and stuff. It looks pretty different because what I'm going to talk about now is going to be early childhood. So it's look like more like Flavio, James Heckman. But I hope that along the way you guys will see that this is pretty much has his way of doing things inside. Both working in the field, collecting data. Importantly, we always use theory to guide us what to do. So that, I hope that would be a simple task that I hope I can accomplish here. Of course, this work is very early. We don't have much of the results to show you. So it's more like going to tell you what I have done and some of the few preliminary results that just to entertain you with few equations as exception. So this is a project that I have started with my team 3 years ago. We call it RIECE. So what is it? So the name is very long. Reducing inequality through early childhood education. Actually, it started from the same literature that I think Flavio has been, part of the work that I use as a base to base this research on is really from James Heckman and Flavio and other people. So this is very simple idea. So we started from learning from the research from what we call Perry Preschool research project. It's one of the reliable and striking research in early childhood that has a lot of attention from economists and others. So this project used what we call high scope curriculum to teach the kids. And then, Professor Heckman then looked at the data and then showed to the world that we have 7-to-1 benefit to cost ratio from this program. That's what the number that people use a lot when we're talking about early childhood education or early childhood investment in general. But I want to be precise here that 7-to-1 number came from this program alone. And I'm a very naive person, so I take this as a very clear evidence, and I just going to take this program, and then I'm just going to take this program to the rural area and see what it happened. So that's very simple task, nothing else. So why we do that? Well, because of the Perry Preschool program, we believe that early childhood education can be very, very helpful, very beneficial. So if you think about this, you can think about how can we create better life from the rural area? Maybe one way in the short run, you can improve their opportunities, you can change financial situation, you can do a lot of help them when they're sick. The other one is to help create human capital. So this is the main part of this program. So we want to help them, we want to be part of their human capital production process. So, and what we're going to do beyond that, this is going to go back to what Flavio just have said, human capital production process. I might say a little bit different. I would say that we don't know that very well yet, at least to me. Compared to how to produce the phone. We know very well how to produce a phone. Whatever we do, we know exactly. We know exactly how much of the silicon you need to use in each cell phone, right? But we don't know exactly how much we're going to do to the kid. We know roughly. We get better and better idea what to do. But in terms of accuracy, in terms of exact science, I think we're much far from those materials production stuff. So this is much more difficult in some sense. So here, I'm going to go quickly here. I took it from Professor Heckman paper. And this is going to tell you that this graph is it's just an idea, so don't stick too much with the number because it's just a general idea to tell you that early intervention, early investment is very, very helpful, right? That's what it said. Later, it's going to be more cost. You're going to have to pay. It's going to be costly. That means you get a lower return. So early is higher return. That's the main idea. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in around this age of the kids. So we don't going to go anywhere here. So those are the medical community. I believe that they have done a lot of good job there. So we're going to try to come in here about 2, 3, 4, 5 years old kids and see what we can do with them. So now, let me tell you a little bit more detail about Perry Preschool for many of you who may not know well. So the Perry Preschool started like 50 years ago, by child psychologists. I think the main person is Dr. David Weichart. And the purpose of this program is exactly what we are trying to do now 50 years later here is to solve the poverty problem. It's not to create a fancy program for rich people. It's really try to solve poverty problem in Michigan. And of course, to prove that any human can be improved. You can improve even African American people. So that's the main idea. So what did they do? They create curriculum called High Scope, and they use that curriculum about 2.5 hours every day after school for the treatment group. And then they have 1.5 hours of home visit weekly to those treatment groups. So they have 5 generations of the kid for those 4 years, I think. And then they have all the kids that they have is 123 kids for 5 generations. So they have treatment and control. So this is a randomized control trial. So the sample is pretty small, right? And then the very nice thing is, it's very visionary to me, at least at that time for this type of research. They collect data and they follow the kids. In the first 12 years, they follow the kid every year. So they have lots of questions. They have a lot of information about the kids, and especially about school because they control the school, so they know a lot of what happened in school. And then after that, they do it like few times. I just heard from Flavio, actually they just finished a 50 years old survey. So it's very, very important. So what happened? So what did we learn? So first, it's a 7-to-1 number that I just said. It's a huge number. So you invest $1, you get $7. You invest $1, you get $7 back, on average. So it's a huge public return for any public investment. So what did they come from? So there are many benefits that you get from doing this, but 2 main contributions of this intervention is, one is the treatment group had higher income, significantly higher income. That would count for about 40% of these 7 times of the benefit. And then the other one is a social benefit come from lower crime and drug uses. So those are the 2 main things that you gain from using these high scope. And very surprisingly, these gains come from non-cognitive skills, not much from cognitive. So mainly this program really improves what Flavio just said, like social, emotional skill to the kid, and the kid learn, to be with the others, also to have self-discipline, to be self-motivated. And then that's where we can see this benefit. So, and that is a key of this high scope program. So here, just to show you some quick graph from Heckman and other people in 2013. So this just show you that this is an IQ test. I think they start the program about 3 years old. At the 4 years old, IQs are clearly different, but then this doesn't last long. When the kids grow older, they get into other type of school, whatever, the IQ just converge mostly. This is for female. For male, it's even more, you see even smaller gap. But this one is a little bit more difficult to look at, but just focus on the blue line, the size of the blue. So that tells you how big of the impact of those non-cognitive stuff, as percentage of the benefit that we see. So it's huge. There's in many category of the outcome. So those are telling you about, I don't know, they call externalizing behavior. It's really behavioral, emotional, social stuff that really drive this benefit. So therefore, so what is high scope? So let me tell you a little bit. So, I mean, I don't know how to teach a kid using this myself, but from 3 years project, so I learned a little bit what it does. So it has many features, but the core activity of this program is what they call plan, do, and review. So what the kid is going to do, the kid is going to do it almost every day. So they're going to plan to play. So this is a play-based learning. It's active learning, but they have the process for the kid to do. So the kid will plan first what they want to do, what they want to accomplish today. So mostly it's about play. So they're going to go to build blocks of houses, they will have Lego and build a car or something like that. Okay? And they're going to communicate to the teacher. This is where what Flavio was talking about will come in. The process itself encourages interaction by itself, naturally. And that's what we see in the field. I mean, who knows what the plan to review really does. But one thing that we can see clearly, this process is going to force the teacher to interact with the kid if they're going to use this process, because the teacher has to be with the kid, has to ask the kid, what you're going to do, right? Okay, you're going to do this, how you're going to do it. So it creates a lot of language interaction as a byproduct. So when the kid plans, so here in our setting, we have quite a lot of kids. So the minimum class size would be 10 to 1, I mean 10 students to 1 teacher. And the class size would be about 17 to 20 something. So what we have to do is we have, in the high scope, you're going to have corners for activity for the kid to go. So we cannot let all the kids to go to one corner because it's going to be too crowded, right? And that's not a big problem in the US because when you have 5 to 1, so, and you have very small class size. But here we have to create this chart. Just methodologically, we just let the kid to choose, but then the kid has to learn that this corner is full. So they have to move on to another choice. So it's kind of a environment just forces us to do that, but hopefully that also creates some patience in them as well. I mean, that's a hope. Then when they go doing it, so in the high scope, I mean, at least in the old version, in the textbook, the kid will be encouraged to stay on the task that they have planned for 30 to 40 minutes. They will finish the task that we believe that would give them self-confidence. So the next time come, if the first time they feel that I should have changed, then they're going to plan better. So and later when we see in a center that can implement it, kid has no problem of working with 30 to 40 hours in the task that they want to do. So, and then the last part, after they finish, they're going to keep things in order, they keep things back in shape, and then they will come and then they will have a review. So the review is really just coming to tell a story, what you have done. So the kids will come in front of the class and then tell their friends what they have done. And then the friends will have a chance to ask questions. This is, again, I think it's going to increase interaction, not just from adult to the kid, but also between the children. So part of the byproduct, and it might be a very important product, is really interaction. Because by using this process, the teacher has to stay with the kid. And actually, the other day, I just took Flavio to the field, and we would go to another center who didn't use the process. You can see the big difference, because if you don't use some kind of a systematic process like this, the teacher will give them something, or maybe turn on the TV, and then they will watch TV. And the teacher will sit back on the chair, and then maybe taking the cell phone up and do something, right? So, and this process is going to force the teacher to stay with the kid, play with the kid, talk to the kid. So I think that would be part of the key success. So, and here's now I'm going to go to the project. So what we have been doing in the last 3 years, we going into rural child care centers, which is administered by local government, local administration, local government. I mean, well, we don't really have local government, we have the government. So it's a local administration that responsible for about 10 to 15 villages. So that's the size of local government. Each local administration will have 1, 2, or 3 centers, depending on the size of the area. So, and we have about 50 child care centers in the first year. And now we have about 43, so some of them left. I mean, some of them is because of exogenous intervention from a central government to their head of local administration. But overall, we have about 2,000 children in the project every year. So the kids in these centers are between 2 to 4 years old. I mean, most of them would be 3 to 4, but then we have 2 to 3 as well. And I mean, some will come, I mean, some will decide to send the kid here, some will keep the kids at home. So, and I mean, that's how, this is the area. So it's a 35 Tambon or sub-district. So what did we do? So first, we bring the high school curriculum. And then we work with Mahasarakham University, where they have early childhood teaching program there that they train teachers. So, and they help me, and Mueang Roy at school, who has been using this high school for several years. So they help me create the Thai version of this high school. And then we talk to the local administration and we ask them if they want to work with us. And on top of the curriculum, because in Thailand, the curriculum is just the principle. Don't tell the teacher what to do. So what we do next, we really build a teaching plan for the teacher for every week teaching plan. Each day, what they should do, what the material they should prepare, what song they should sing. So it's not like we want to restrict their choice, but it just, we have heard a lot that the teacher complain, we don't know what to do, we don't know what we should do with this, so we decided we're going to create a manual for them. So if they don't want to do anything else, follow this. So we have it for every week and every day of a schooling year. So that's one instrument that we created, and hopefully it will be helpful. So second, we believe that it's going to be difficult to change these people where they have been working in their own way for a long time. We randomly added teachers, our own team, into the center. So we have budget to cover about 20 teachers. These teachers are young guys actually, not much experience. They just graduated from early childhood education. We train them to teach high school way. And then we randomly put them into 20 centers. So this is where we random. So we didn't random the curriculum. So, and we random to send the teacher into the center, and the teacher will go co-teach with the local teacher for 1 year. Okay, so, and we can see that from our, I mean, there's no scientific measurement there yet, but we can see from our observation that these teachers do something different, and we can see the difference in where they go. So, and these will be, hopefully will be important when we try to assess some impact or some research question about the project, that this variation will be helpful because it's purely exogenous, it's random. And these are the example of the teacher that they go. So that's the first one, and that's the second one. Then the next one, we also have regular visit. So we also have early childhood expert go visit the center regularly every month. Well, of course, yeah, when I tell the teacher what are we doing this, the first purpose is to give them advice, to see what they do, and then to say, okay, you might want to do it this way, you might want to change from here and there. That's the first purpose. Of course, as an economist, the second purpose is also important. That work as a monitoring system. But we cannot separate them for now. They go together. It's a package. I cannot separate between advising and monitoring. It's a package. And of course, the other one is, which I think is going to be very useful, is they also going to collect the data back for us. Every time they visit, hopefully the data that we get from them is going to tell us a little bit about quality of the instruction in each center. So there are three main parts that we get from this regular visit. The other part that we're going to do is this year, we haven't done it, we are doing it now, is we're going to change. This year we don't have those 20 teachers anymore. So what do we learn? We learn from the first year that when we send the 20 teacher in, it's quite successful in her class. I mean, I'm going to use her because all of the teachers are female. So it's very difficult to find male early childhood teacher. I think it must be everywhere in the world. We see success in her classroom, but many teachers in the same center just decided not to follow anything. Sometimes they just leave the classroom to our teacher. I mean, it's good for them just to have someone help them teach the kids, right? So some centers are very good. Some centers, they learn and they improve themselves. So that would be a big research question they want to understand as well. So what we're going to change? So now, of course, it's our guess. Maybe one thing that we have done wrong is we send them for 1 year. The teacher just feel that, well, this year is my vacation, right? So I can leave the room, so I leave it to the teacher. Well, it looks great. It looks promising, but who knows? So what? So what we're going to do is we're going to make this stuff shorter. So we're going to make it like a month. And we're not going to co-teach. We're going to go as consulting. So this is like you have a business consulting service, where you go in, you're going to help the teacher develop. So that would be a thing that the new thing that we're going to try this year. And hopefully that will work. And of course, it's much more cost effective because I don't need as many as teachers as before. So that's what we're going to do next year. So we call it coaching on the side. And the other thing that we learned, which is obvious, but I didn't realize it before, is a training system. So when we started the project 3 years ago, we have like this bigger, the room that's bigger than this. We invite all the local teachers to the meeting. I invite some expert from Bangkok, some expert that we work with, give them lectures for 2 days. I mean, it's very interesting. I sat there, I learned a lot. Everyone looked very exciting that they're going to change something, so I have very high hope. And then when we go back, then everyone go back to the center, and then we go ask them questions about, are you teaching the way that we try to promote? Only 11% doing that. For almost the first semester here, it doesn't increase much. It increased a little bit, but mostly through our teacher. We have 20, so these 20 already count for 10%. So, and then we decided to change the way that we're going to train them. Even though then we didn't do it in a systematic way. We call it on-site training, which is very obvious. Actually, that would be a way that training is supposed to be in the future. You cannot just come and listen to lecture. Like, for example, it's the same thing as data collection. You can come and listen to data collection, how hard it is, how beautiful it is. You're not going to know how to do it until you try to do it. You learn exactly on the side, right? You really have your own experience. So that's when we see that at least when we ask them to come and stay in a center for a week, at least there's more interest. It's like double the interest of the teacher to adopt the approach. So at least that gives us some hope that now we have a better way to really get them to really doing it. So now we create a more systematic way of this training. So, and this would be a big part of how to expand this service outside our research area. So, and then we do another simple thing, but it's quite interesting. We give 200 books, children books to the center, and we encourage them to let the kid borrow home. So many of them do, of course. There's about 20% of them, maybe 10% of some centers don't do it at all, okay? But some do it very well. So from 2 years, and then we created kind of a small booklet that the teacher sent it back with the book to the household. And the household really liked this. This is one of the services that the household respond very, very well. And actually, it's the cheapest activity that we do. They like it a lot. They have books to read to the children now. I think that's at least tell me that they are poor, they are less educated, but they're willing to read to the kids. Most of them. We found about among 1,000 kids, we found 5 parents who say, don't send this book home at all. There's some parents like that, but very, very small. So I don't think that's a good stereotyping that we should make, that poor people don't try to read to the kids. They try. They don't have things. And the way that we have is cost effective because you don't have to buy books for every household. You give books to the center. The kid come to the center. It's part of the training already. Then the kid borrow home. And by having this book, then they can write something. The parent can write to us what they think. Sometimes you have a very enjoy reading this. Some say, well, thank you a lot. Well, some would say, yeah, you should teach them to write a little more. We have that too. But we're going to stick with the approach though. So what we learned so far from the project is it's quite effective, and it's pretty effective. This high scope thing, I mean, it's from the US, 50 years ago thing, but it's worked pretty well, at least in the rural area where it's very primitive. I mean, it's a primitive child care center. And the teachers there are, well, I mean, they are qualified, but they're not super qualified like many schools, but they still can do it. I think that's a very nice thing of having these in a large scale. It's practical enough for them to learn. Of course, not everyone learn. That's still a big question for me. So that actually get me to interested in literature on technology adoption, which I have no result to show, but that actually caught my interest very much. One thing that I always feel embarrassed when I try to think about what I have learned in my PhD and working with Professor Townsend is contract theory stuff. I haven't used it much in my project. I use it here and there, like in the monitoring stuff, doing that, doing this. But I think this will come in. I mean, hopefully that will show some part of Professor Townsend in the project. Is later, I think I'm going to have to step back and think about what I have learned in contract theory a little more, and then see what I can improve in terms of getting the teacher to adopt this. So I mean, we're pretty confident in the approach. I mean, I'm not going to try to say that this is the best teaching approach that we had in the world. On the other hand, I don't know who knows which one is the best. I mean, I did ask James Heckman himself. I mean, I asked Flavio too. I don't think we have a consensus what is the best. But what we know so far is high scope is effective and cost effective as well. It's pretty, you don't need extra cost on adopting this. But the problem is, it's a very simple problem actually. If the teacher uses this, the kid is going to be better, the parent is going to be happier. What the teacher gets is not clear. So that's a problem. The teacher is going to have to put more effort because the teacher is going to have to work with the kid, talk to the kid. They get to do more instead of sitting back, using Facebook or whatever. So that's the reason. I mean, we know the reason, but we just don't know how to do it yet. So it's pretty the incentive thing that is really important here. And we're not sure. First of all, we don't have enough money to use a monetary incentive a lot. On the other hand, we're not sure if that's the best way to go. So that's a big question. And I, again, encourage a lot of, young researcher or any researcher to, I think it come back to me that this is very important. It's as important as you try to find the best way to teach. Maybe it's even more important because trying to find the best way, but it cannot implement in a large scale, doesn't mean much. But if you have an effective way to teach, but then you can implement in a large scale in a very cost-effective way, that's huge. You multiply millions of people who can have the effect. Even though the effect is not huge, but you're going to get a lot on aggregate. So that's the first part that I'm going to talk about. Is the second part that this will have more Professor Townsend stuff in it. So I'm not sure I use the English right, but I would call it, this is a Townsend spirit in this project. So we have data collection. I mean, I don't have much results, but I will tell you a lot more about what we do in the data stuff. So we collect data. The data that we collect first has some part that pretty much come from the Townsend Thai data structure. We have the household part that use a lot of the Townsend Thai data structure. So we know a lot of things in the household, right? I mean, we know standard house socioeconomic structure, family structure. Our sample has about 1,400 households, about 1,600 kids, because some household has more than one kids. These surveys in those around the area of the center that we had. So the result that I'm going to present, some preliminary result I can present today, just come from the baseline survey of the first generation. Actually, we have 2 generations of surveys, so those in the process, so it's going to take a while. So I think the part that I think is the most important part of the data here is not because we have household data, because you have a lot in Townsend Thai data. Maybe it's not much to add to that, but I think the unique parts of the data is really we have very good household data, which I think Perry itself doesn't have that much yet. On the other hand, we have schooling data in the same data set. I believe that, look at NLSY, for example, it's very good data and people use a lot. Flago is very expert on that. You have a very good household data. but I think you know pretty little about school. On the other hand, the Perry Preschool, for example, you know very well about school. A Basidarian, for example, you know a lot about school. But you have quite little compared to NLFY in terms of household data. So here is where it's coming from. So we're going to try to put these two things together. Even though, we cannot do everything that we're supposed to do in theory with limited resources that we have, but that is really our goal. We want to try to have both sides in this data set, and we want to be able to take into account the quality of both the household and the education at the same time in this data set. So, that's what I already said. We have three parts of the data. The children part is necessary, of course, because we focus on children. We try to ask a lot about what the children get along the way. What the input that they have. So basically, in the first few years, we focus a lot on what the children get. And then we have a household data. So the household is pretty much like 1,000 Thai data. And then we have schooling. So we have a lot of information. A lot more than what we used to have. So here's the data look like. I just have tables, so sorry for, maybe it's a little bit difficult, but let's look at this number first. So I separate the data in terms of household structure, in terms of family, biological parent structure. So if we separate them into three groups, one group is when they have both parents at home. The other one is have only one. The other one has no biological parents at home at all. In our sample, at least, we have 43% where parents are not home. In the same standard definition of household survey, of course. They are not just, most of them, of course, just migrate to work in the city. And we will see, like in many data, you see a lot of remittance back home. This group is going to have the highest remittance. And this is second large. This is also why they have one parent, because mostly the father migrate to work somewhere else. They're going to send a lot of money home. So, and one thing that you can see that this data has even though you separate this way, the characteristic of the kids are very uniform, well, because it's random by kids. The first generation, we go to the center, we have the population about 2,000 kids, then we random them. So, and if you look at the investment to the kid, so this is what we call material investment, material expense. You can see that this group is the smallest. Even though they receive remittance a lot from the parents, but somehow those still mainly for consumption, to survive, because mostly these households will have like grandpa and grandma at home. So usually they don't work by themselves much. They do, but not much. So that's why it doesn't turn up into the material investment. Now, the second one that we had, we asked the parents by item though, how much time did you spend doing dancing with the kid? How much time you read to the kids? How much time you play blocks with the kid? How much time you play what they call pretend, or just role play, right? You become a doctor, you become a teacher. How much time you use per week? So that's what we call activity time. So it's developmental intensive activity. So we separate this from caring time. So because caring time could be just I cook for them, I washing them from far away. So that would be called caring time. So then we sum them, we call rallying time. I don't know what to call, so I call something. So, but this again is very clear here that this group receive much lower than the others. Also time. Even though if you think about opportunity cost, the wage of these people are pretty low. We're going to come back to the parenting belief at some point. So, and then you can have some standard. Now, and also you can see the caregiver in this group is relatively old, 50 years old on average, if the parents are not home. So mostly a grandma. And then education is also clearly lower. These people, people would thought that they cannot read. We are testing them actually. Read some simple stuff, they can read. Most of them can read some simple stuff. It's not like they have 5 years education and they cannot read at all. No, that's not the case, at least in Thailand, in this area. So, and then this income, and then you can see the clearly different. So the remittance. This group, of course, the parents are home. You don't have much of that. So now let me go through this just quickly. So that will be my last 5-10 minutes. So I want to show you this model. I mean, it's, in some sense, it's look a little bit different from Flavio, but actually it's almost the same model. So what I want to think about this is really, we want to think about a household that's trying to maximize utility. They try to choose this investment to get the best they can. Okay, subject to what? They're going to have budget constraint. So here where I do a little bit different. I go to the classical, more classical way of budget constraint. So here is what they're going to, this their wage. They have to do two things in terms of time. They have to take leisure. This is leisure. And then they have to do the time investment. They have to play with the kids. So I get rid of the caring time here. We will not separate them. But then on the other side, we have available time that they're supposed to have for that whole day. So that would be the full income that they have. You can imagine this B could be remittance, or it could be a flow from wealth. Right? Because I kind of abstract from the dynamics here. I don't really model that, but you can imagine that. And then you consume some standard consumption, and then you also buy something for the kids. So this is material investment. And then we frame this as a production process that the household is going to want to have high skill of the kid. So this is the skill of the kid. By doing what? Let's say that they believe that there's a function that's going to create that using the time investment and material investment. So this is what I'm going to try to do a little bit deviation from what Flavio just said. It's just to go a little bit more detail and separate between time and material. That's all we do here. The rest are very similar. So A would represent productivity. So what we're going to do with this model? So I'm just going to derive some simple thing from this model, and I'm not going to go through the detail how we derive it. Or let me just tell you this. So this is just, we just add here because there's some people, I mean, Flavio just said, there's some people try to say that, well, when playing with a kid, you might gain utility from that. So this is kind of to represent that, yeah, you might gain some utility equivalent to some leisure. But we can, for now, we cannot identify that parameter, so it's a sad part. Otherwise, it would be nice to see if it's true. So what we do is really focus on these optimal conditions. So I want to show you this, it's just because this is a very simple condition, we're going to try to estimate this log ratio of two investment, time and material. So the nice thing is, if you believe in the model, what you're going to get is, you're going to get these parameters in front of the log of the wage. And these parameters, if you look at this as a constant elasticity of substitution production function, this is elasticity of substitution. So we can estimate this just very simple way. Of course, I mean, you guys can tell me what's go wrong. So that's what we're going to estimate. The other thing is here. So there's a belief. I mean, I could imagine that some different household may think that the meal or how effective of time investment relative to material investment may be different across household, right, across parents. So this is kind of part of the belief. So, but I get away from the expect utility like Flavio did because I just wave hand. It's not because it's right, but I just kind of get away from it. Don't use it, actually. So we're going to come back and look at it. But first, we're going to imagine that we don't know this. If we don't ask them about belief, so we have no way to measure this. So if we don't, so we're going to focus on the wage alone. So that's the results. And so here we can see that, we can see some results here that wage, and this is negative, and the theory says it should be negative. I think that's a nice part to me at least, because this is a elasticity, so it's positive, so negative side here. So what you can see from here is about 0.4. What does it mean? Actually, it just tells me that people, at least if this is right, the parent believe that the time and material are pretty much complement. So, and it's not Cobb-Douglas. You can see that from the standard error here, it's not the standard Cobb-Douglas because the Cobb-Douglas is supposed to be 1, and this is pretty far from 1. So, at least from the standard error measure. The other thing that we cannot explain, though, is the wealth. Wealth still matter. Why is that? Because what we estimate here, the nice thing of this condition is, doesn't depend on utility that we assume. There's no assumption on utility that we need here. And secondly, this size of the equation doesn't enter that at all. So wealth should not supposed to be here if this model is right. So, but actually, it's significant everywhere. The other thing that we learned, but we didn't highlight much here, is gender matters a lot. child gender matters a lot in these equations. We always see this in anywhere we change the specification. It's one of the most robust results that we see. It seems to say that girl get more time activity relative to material, and relative to the boy. So this ratio is going to be different for the boy. The boy will get more material, less time, and very consistent. So, and we can change few things. So we can look at only, this size if we use different way of measure wage, because this is one thing that I think the survey will come in. And many people may not realize, if you don't really do it, is to get a wage rate in rural area is very, very difficult. Why? Because they don't work for salary. You cannot go and ask them what's your income, what's your salary. They don't, right? They do agricultural, they do business. So, and you have to count those income. And that is not perfect either, but that's what you can do. And you spend a lot of time just to get their income right. That's what I believe that there's a big part of the Thousand Thai data that if you work in some area, you would say, yeah, why you spend a lot of time talking about income? Well, because they don't work for salary. They don't have the slip that you see every month, right? They cannot show me that. So that's why this part we have to look at other way of looking at wage rate. But the results are quite similar. That's what I'm going to do. So in the last few minutes, so let me just conclude with the parenting belief. So actually, this is motivated by Flavio's work. So in his paper in 2013, my student who is here and I, we're looking at that, and then we say, well, we want to do that too. So we go to the field and we ask questions, but we do a little bit different. Part of it because of the model is really guide us. The model that I wrote is about time versus material. So we're going to change the scenario. Instead of asking, you do a lot, you do low only. So we're going to do high time, high material, high time, low material. So instead of asking, so we're going to ask about people to think about the effect of time and material directly. So, and we use very similar method of what Flavio have done in that paper, mostly. And so I'm going to skip this part, but quickly the main point is really we try to map whatever we ask from the belief into the skill that they believe. So that's very important part. And for what we do is we really try to capture this mu from those questions. So what we really capture is, I skip this, is really the ratio of this mu that we're trying to capture from the expectation data. So we ask them the scenario, and then we turn it, in the way that Flavio has taught me, that then we try to claim that this is the ratio of the mu. So now I'm going to be very naive. I'm going to act as if this is the ratio of the mu, really. I'm going to put into the regression, right? It's a very naive thing to do, like an undergrad student would do. And I'm going to act like that. And the prediction is, again, this is supposed to be positive, and the sign of this coefficient is supposed to be negative. So, and that's what we find. Actually, surprisingly, maybe it's too magical. We still have to work on this. This is just a few results that we got. So we don't know if it's really true, but at least it's encouraging that we see the right sign. So that this is the part of the expectation. It's negative, and it's a bit significant. And also, if I'm going to do a little more of R square, which I think Professor Townsend may kill me by saying that, but that's the part of the thing that I think we want to do too, in some sense, is we want to see if these help explain the data much better. It's a bit, not much, but at least it's increased a bit. But still, a lot of things that we don't know. But at least these, do I agree with Flavio? I think yes. I know that parenting belief is very important. Though the question is what we're going to do with it. So one thing that the project that RIECE Thailand hasn't done is really, we hasn't done the home visit yet. And maybe this year we are serious about that, and hopefully we can start that, and then we can learn more about this. And so those are the results. So, and hopefully at the end, let me conclude in 1 minute, and hopefully this is in the spirit of Professor Townsend. Is the first thing is hopefully, not much of the results that I showed today, but whatever we do in this project will convince you a bit that research is important. Research is useful. Research is not just on paper and then we read it for ourselves and we say, okay, this is nice, this is not nice, but it can be very useful. It can help to decide what to do, and it can help us implement it better. And then the data collection is crucial, of course. That's the theme of the conference, and we do it in this project, and we believe that it's going to be very, very important to learn this much more. And we believe that after the data coming in, we need going to do more research to go back to the design and then change it. So that's the good part. The nice part of this project is, at least in the next few years, hopefully, I still have a chance to change something when we see more results. Right, what Flavio did as well, that when we see more results, we know where it's go wrong. Hopefully we can improve that. We can change the way we look at the problem. We can decide better, and we collect new data by looking at the models, and then we know where we miss that we cannot use the model. So we still dynamics enough, we still in the area, we still in the project. So we can, I think that would be a big part of this project, that we can improve all these parts because we are with it and we learn about it every day, and that hopefully that would be something that would lead us to policy later on, but I still want to have research that come from policy. Thank you.